The dust motes danced in the afternoon sunlight as I sorted through Dad's office, each item a memory, each folder a reminder that he was really gone. Heart attack, they said. Sudden but not unexpected, given the stress he'd been under. Still, at 48, Thomas Warner had seemed invincible to me. My name is Sarah Warner, and this is how I uncovered the dark truth behind Warner Pharmaceuticals' miraculous success. Need any help? Marcus Thompson stood in the doorway, his expensive suit a stark contrast to my casual jeans and sweater. Dad's business partner of 20 years looked perfectly groomed as always, but something about his expression seemed off. I'm fine, I said, continuing to sort through the papers. Just trying to get everything organized before the board meeting tomorrow. Marcus nodded, his fingers drumming against the doorframe. About that, Sarah, the other partners and I have been talking. Given the circumstances, we think it might be best if you considered our buyout offer. I looked up sharply. They'd approached me with the offer just days after Dad's funeral, $15 million for my inherited 40% stake in the company. A fortune to most people, but something about the timing felt wrong. I told you, Marcus, I'm not selling. Dad built this company from nothing. He wanted me to carry on his legacy. Sarah, his voice took on that patronizing tone I'd heard too often lately. Your father was a brilliant man, but running a pharmaceutical company requires experience. You're 28 with a background in computer science. What do you know about drug development? More than you think, I wanted to say. Dad had been grooming me to take over for years, teaching me every aspect of the business since I was old enough to understand. But lately, something had changed. In the months before his death, he'd become distant, worried. The offer expires tomorrow, Marcus continued. After that, well, things might get complicated. Was that a threat? Before I could ask, his phone buzzed. I have to take this. Think about it, Sarah. $15 million is a lot of money for someone your age. After he left, I sat in Dad's leather chair, trying to think. The company was doing better than ever. Our new cancer drug showing promising results in clinical trials. Why were they so eager to push me out? Standing to stretch, I noticed something odd about the bookshelf behind Dad's desk. One of the medical texts was slightly askew. When I tried to straighten it, it wouldn't move. Instead, there was a soft click. A section of the bookshelf swung inward, revealing a small room behind it. My heart pounding, I grabbed my phone for light and stepped inside. The room was barely larger than a closet, its walls lined with filing cabinets. A desk lamp sat on a small table, along with a sealed envelope with my name on it. With trembling fingers, I opened the letter. My dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, I'm either dead or unable to tell you the truth myself. Our company's success, everything we've built, is based on lies. The evidence is in these files. Don't trust Marcus or the others. They know what really happened, and they'll do anything to keep it hidden. I'm so sorry for involving you in this. I thought I could fix it before you had to know, but time is running out. Be careful, be smart, and remember that I love you, no matter what you might think of me after learning the truth. Dad. I stared at the letter, my world tilting on its axis. Dad had been the most ethical person I knew. He built Warner Pharmaceuticals on the principle that profit should never come before patient care. The filing cabinets were meticulously organized, each drawer labeled by year. I started with the most recent, pulling out the first folder. Inside was a detailed report about our new cancer drug, WP-254. But these weren't the results I'd seen in company presentations. According to these documents, the drug wasn't just ineffective. It was dangerous. My phone buzzed, making me jump. A text from Lisa, Dad's former assistant. Sarah, we need to talk. Not at the office. It's about your father's death. Meet me at Riverside Park in an hour. I took photos of the documents with trembling hands, then carefully closed the hidden door. Whatever was going on, I needed more information before confronting Marcus and the board. The park was quiet when I arrived, just a few joggers braving the autumn chill. Lisa sat on a bench overlooking the river, nervously checking her phone. Sarah, she stood as I approached. Thank you for coming. I've been wanting to tell you about your father. What about him? The night he died, she glanced around nervously. He called me, asked me to come to the office. He said he had proof that Marcus and the others were falsifying drug trial data. He was going to expose everything at the next board meeting. My blood ran cold. Are you sane? I think they killed him, Sarah. And I think they're going to try to kill you too if you don't take that buyout offer. Before I could respond, a jogger passed close to our bench. Too close. I caught a glint of metal in his hand. Lisa, run. But it was too late. The crack of a silenced pistol was followed by Lisa crumpling to the ground. I turned to flee, but the jogger was faster, grabbing my arm. Ms. Warner, he said calmly, as if he hadn't just murdered someone, Mr. Thompson would like to speak with you. I did the only thing I could think of. I screamed, loud enough to make the jogger flinch, loosening his grip just enough. I twisted away, thanking God for those self-defense classes Dad had insisted I take. Running through the park, I could hear footsteps behind me. My car was too far. Instead, I headed for the crowded shopping district 2 blocks away. The killer couldn't risk exposing himself in public. My phone buzzed again. Marcus. Sarah, where are you? We need to discuss the company's future. I ducked into a coffee shop, trying to steady my breathing. Lisa was dead. Dad had been murdered. And the company he'd built, the legacy he'd wanted me to protect, was built on fraud. But I wasn't without resources. Dad had taught me more than just business. He taught me to plan for everything. Opening my phone's secure folder, I activated a program I'd written years ago. Within seconds, I had remote access to Warner Pharmaceuticals' entire network. Time to find out exactly what Marcus and his partners were trying to hide. The barista gave me an odd look as I sat in a corner, furiously typing on my phone. On the surface, Warner Pharmaceuticals' network looked normal. But I knew there had to be more. Dad's hidden files proved that. Then I found it. A second set of books, carefully concealed behind layers of encryption. The real trial data, showing years of falsified results. Drugs that should never have been approved, side effects that were hidden, deaths that were covered up. My hands shook as I downloaded everything to a secure cloud server. The evidence was clear. Marcus and the board had been running a criminal enterprise worth billions. All while Dad tried desperately to stop them. But why hadn't he gone to the authorities? The answer had to be in those files in his office. Files I couldn't access now that Marcus knew I'd discovered the truth. My phone buzzed one more time, an email from Marcus's private account that my program had intercepted. She found the room. Implement contingency plan. No loose ends this time. I looked out the coffee shop window at the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, Marcus's killer was still searching for me. And tomorrow was the board meeting where they expected me to sign away my shares. They thought they were dealing with a naive young woman in over her head. They didn't know that Thomas Warner's daughter had inherited more than just his shares. I'd inherited his determination to expose the truth, no matter the cost, in their trying to kill me. Over the next hour, I explained everything. The hidden room, the falsified drug trials, the murders disguised as accidents. Helen listened without interrupting, her face growing grimmer with each revelation. "Show me the data," she finally said. I connected my phone to her secure computer, displaying the files I'd downloaded. Helen's expertise wasn't just in computer science. She'd worked for the FDA before entering academia. She'd know if what I found was as bad as I thought. It was worse. She shook her head in horror. Sarah, they didn't just falsify trial results. They deliberately covered up deaths in the clinical trials. UP254 isn't just ineffective. It accelerates tumor growth in certain patients. But it's already been approved by the FDA, I said. People are taking it right now, based on fraudulent data. Helen's fingers flew across the keyboard. And not just WP254. Look at these other trials. They've been doing this for years. Why didn't Dad stop them sooner? Night had fallen by the time I arrived at the one place I knew I'd be safe, Professor Helen Chen's house. My former computer science mentor had become like a second mother after Mom died, and more importantly, she had a panic room with no digital footprint. "My God, Sarah," Helen gasped when she saw me. "You look terrible." I probably did. Hours of running, hiding, and hacking had left me exhausted, but I couldn't rest. Not yet. "They killed Dad," I said as she ushered me inside. "And Lisa." Helen pulled up another document. "They were blackmailing him. Remember when your mother died? The car accident? What about it?" "According to this, it wasn't an accident. They arranged it when your father first threatened to expose them. The message was clear. Stay quiet or Sarah dies next." The room spun. Mom's death, which had devastated us 5 years ago, had been murder. Dad had spent years trying to gather evidence while playing along with Marcus's schemes, all to protect me. The board meeting is in 10 hours, I said. They expect me to sign over my shares. You can't go, they'll kill you the moment they have what they want. They'll kill me anyway. I stood up, pacing the room. But Dad left me everything I need to stop them. We just have to figure out how. Helen watched me pace, a thoughtful expression on her face. What exactly did your father teach you about the company? Everything. The business operations, the research protocols, the security systems. I stopped. The security systems. A plan began forming in my mind. Crazy, dangerous, but possibly brilliant. Helen, I need your help. And we'll need to call in a few favors. The next morning, I walked into Warner Pharmaceuticals headquarters exactly on schedule. Marcus was waiting in the lobby, all smooth concern. Sarah, we were worried when we couldn't reach you yesterday. Sorry, I smiled apologetically. Needed time to think about your offer. Where's the board meeting? Main conference room. Everyone's waiting. He gestured toward the elevators. After you. As we rode up to the executive floor, I thought about the pieces already in motion. Helen had made her calls. Everything was ready. The boardroom was full, all 8 partners sitting around the massive table, their faces masks of professional concern. The contract lay ready at my usual seat. Sarah, Gerald Winston, our chief legal counsel, stood to greet me. We've prepared the paperwork. $15 million, as discussed. All you need to do is sign. I sat down, picking up the contract. Actually, I had some questions first. Marcus's smile tightened slightly. Of course. But let's keep it brief. We have other matters to discuss. Like WP254's real trial results. The room went silent. Gerald's face paled. Or perhaps, I continued, we should discuss what really happened to my father. Sarah, Marcus's voice was dangerously soft. I don't know what you think you found, but you're clearly confused. Oh, I'm not confused at all. I opened my laptop, connecting it to the room's display screen. In fact, I'm seeing things very clearly for the first time. The screen filled with documents, the real trial data, the falsified reports, the evidence of years of fraud. You've been busy, Marcus said coldly. But those files could be altered. No one will believe. They already do. I pressed a button on my phone. The room's doors opened, revealing a team of FBI agents. Say hello to the federal task force that's been investigating Warner Pharmaceuticals for the past 12 hours. Marcus lunged for me, but the agents were faster. As they read him his rights, I turned to the other board members. Did you know my father installed secondary cameras in this room years ago? The ones you don't know about? They recorded everything, including your conversation last week about arranging his accident. Gerald tried to run but was quickly tackled. The other board members sat frozen as agents moved to arrest them. You were right about one thing, I told Marcus as they led him away. Dad did teach me everything about this company, including how to protect it from people like you. The next few hours were a blur of federal agents, reporters, and chaos. Warner Pharmaceuticals stock was suspended from trading. The FDA launched an emergency review of all our drugs, and I found myself in an interrogation room, explaining everything to the lead investigator. Your professor friend called us yesterday, Agent Roberts told me. But we've actually been watching Warner Pharmaceuticals for months. We just couldn't prove the fraud. Your father's evidence changed everything. Will it be enough to convict them? Conspiracy and murder? Oh yes. They're looking at life sentences, especially once their hired killer flipped on them. Turns out professional assassins don't like being stiffed on payment. I thought about Lisa, about Mom, about Dad's years of silent struggle. What happens to the company now? That's largely up to you. As majority shareholder, you have options. But first, he slid a folder across the table. You should see this. Inside was a letter from Dad to the FBI, dated just days before his death. If you're reading this, I'm probably dead. But my daughter Sarah has everything you need to expose the truth. Trust her. She's smarter than any of them realize, and she has something they never will, integrity. Tears blurred my vision. Even at the end, Dad had believed in me. 1 year later, I stood in the newly renovated lobby of Warner Medical Research Institute. The pharmaceutical company was gone, replaced by a nonprofit dedicated to ethical drug research and development. The billions recovered from Marcus and the board's hidden accounts funded free treatment for victims of their fraudulent drugs. Dad's old office was now a memorial library, but I'd kept one thing, the hidden room. Not to hide secrets, but to remind me why transparency matters. The bookshelf still swings open, but now it reveals a small museum documenting the scandal and its resolution. Helen joined me on the Institute's board of directors, helping ensure our research meets the highest ethical standards. We established the Thomas Warner Whistleblower Fund, supporting others who risk everything to expose corporate fraud. The media called it the biggest pharmaceutical scandal in history. The story had everything: murder, corruption, a dramatic takedown. Some Hollywood producers even approached me about movie rights. But for me, it was simpler. It was about a father who sacrificed everything to protect his daughter and do what was right. About a legacy that wasn't measured in dollars but in lives saved. Marcus and the others went to prison for life. During the trial, he asked to speak with me one last time. "You could have taken the money," he said, $15 million. "Why didn't you?" I showed him the last photo taken of Dad and me at my college graduation, because some things are worth more than money. Dad taught me that. These days, when people ask about Warner Medical Research Institute's success, I tell them it's built on 3 principles: transparency, integrity, and justice. The same principles Dad believed in, that he died protecting. The hidden room stays open now, a reminder that the truth, however painful, must never stay buried. And every morning, when I pass Dad's portrait in the lobby, I remember his final message to me. She's smarter than any of them realize, and she has something they never will: integrity. He was right about the integrity part. As for being smarter, well, I learned from the best. Another charity case. Cousin Peter's voice dripped with disdain as he studied the funding request from a local youth center. "Really, Catherine? When are you going to stop playing small-town social worker and do something meaningful with your life?" I bit back a sharp reply, reminding myself why I'd invited my wealthy cousins to my modest home in Cedar Grove, population 12,000. After inheriting $2.5 million from my grandmother 6 months ago, I needed investment advice. Unfortunately, the only financially savvy relatives I had were also the most condescending. "The youth center provides essential services," I said, keeping my voice level. "But that's not why I asked you here. I want to discuss investment opportunities for Grandma Rose's inheritance." Peter and his wife Victoria exchanged knowing looks. Even my other cousin, Andrea, stopped scrolling through her phone long enough to pay attention. Finally, Victoria smiled, perfect teeth gleaming. "We were wondering when you'd wise up. I mean, what were you going to do with all that money in this?" She glanced around my comfortable but simple living room, charming little town. At 34, I'd spent the last decade building a life I was proud of. After getting my master's in social work, I'd returned to Cedar Grove, working my way up to Director of Community Services. It wasn't glamorous like Peter's investment banking career or Andrea's luxury real estate business in Chicago. But it mattered. "The youth center needs $50,000 for their new education program," I explained. "I was thinking of donating that much, then investing the rest." "Absolutely not." Peter cut me off. "This is exactly why you need our help. You can't waste Grandma's money on local charity cases when there are real opportunities out there." Victoria nodded enthusiastically. "Peter's new investment fund is generating amazing returns. 20% minimum, guaranteed." That caught my attention. Guaranteed? How? Peter launched into a complex explanation about market algorithms, proprietary trading strategies, and exclusive client pools. Most of it went over my head, but the projected returns were impressive. "We've got several family members invested already," Andrea chimed in. "Aunt Susan put in $500,000 last month. Even Dad's moved his retirement fund over." I hesitated. Could I see some documentation? Prospectus? Performance records? "Catherine," Peter sighed dramatically. "This is family. Do you really need paperwork? The minimum buy-in is usually $5 million. But I can get you in with 2 because you're my favorite cousin." That should have been my first warning sign. But Peter had always been the financial genius of the family, following in our uncle's footsteps to Wall Street success. And if Aunt Susan and Uncle James trusted him? Guilt triumphed over caution. 2 weeks later, I transferred $2 million to Peter's investment fund, keeping the remaining amount for local projects and emergency savings. The first 3 months seemed to confirm Peter's promises. The monthly statements showed steady gains. Victoria called regularly with updates about their luxurious lifestyle. New vacation home in Aspen, private school for their kids, country club memberships. You could have all this too, she hinted. There's no reason to stay stuck in Cedar Grove. With your returns, you could easily afford a place in Chicago near us. But I loved my life in Cedar Grove. The people were real, the work meaningful. When the youth center launched their education program with my donation, seeing the kids' excitement meant more than any country club membership. Then came the call that changed everything. Catherine. Lisa's voice was urgent. Remember that background check you asked me to run on Peter's fund? I just heard from my contact at the SEC. There's no registration for this fund. Nothing. Are you sure about where your money is? My blood ran cold. What are you saying? I'll think about it, I said carefully. Don't think too long, Victoria warned. This opportunity won't last forever. And honestly, what else are you going to do with the money here? Fund more hopeless causes? After they left, I sat in my garden, thinking. The youth center desperately needed that education program. But if Peter's fund could really generate those returns, I could help even more people in the long run. I called my old college roommate, Lisa, now a financial advisor in Seattle. 20% guaranteed returns? She sounded skeptical. Kat, that's not how legitimate investments work. Has he registered this fund with the SEC? I assume so. The whole family's investing. Get me the paperwork, Lisa insisted. I'll review it for you, no charge. But when I asked Peter for documentation, he got defensive. This is exclusive, Catherine, by invitation only, if you don't trust family. I'm saying you need to get more information. Fast. This has all the red flags of a... Don't say it. I couldn't bear to hear the word Ponzi scheme out loud. But once the seed of doubt was planted, I couldn't ignore the signs. The vague explanations, the lack of documentation, the pressure to keep everything in the family. I hired a forensic accountant sworn to secrecy. Within 2 weeks, he confirmed my worst fears. The fund exists, he reported grimly, but it's not generating any real returns. Money from new investors is being used to pay earlier investors, classic pyramid structure, and there are some very questionable transfers to offshore accounts. I felt sick, not just for myself, but for Aunt Susan, Uncle James, all the family members Peter had convinced to invest. Then came the second shock. My accountant discovered something else. Systematic embezzlement from the family's charitable foundation, which Peter managed. Money meant for scholarships and community programs had been flowing into his personal accounts for years. I confronted him at his Chicago office, armed with proof. It's not what you think, he blustered. The market's been challenging. We're just having a temporary cash flow issue. Save it. I slid the forensic report across his desk. I've seen the evidence. The fake returns, the offshore accounts, the foundation theft. How long did you think you could keep this up? His face changed, arrogance replacing panic. And what are you going to do about it? Go public? Destroy the family's reputation? Think about Aunt Susan's social standing, Uncle James's position on the hospital board. I think you should be more worried about your position in federal prison. Don't threaten me, he snapped. You're still the same small-town nobody who needed my help. Nobody will believe you over me. I stood to leave. We'll see about that. Oh, and Peter. I kept records of everything. Every conversation, every promise, every transfer. Consider this your warning. Walking out of his gleaming office tower, I felt strangely calm. The money hurt to lose, but this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about justice, about protecting others from Peter's greed. What are you going to do? Lisa asked when I called to update her. First, I'm going to save as many people as I can. Then, I smiled grimly. Then I'm going to show my cousin exactly what this small-town nobody can do. The game was on, and Peter was about to learn that real power isn't about money or status. It's about doing what's right, no matter the cost. A family meeting. Victoria's voice dripped skepticism over the phone. Catherine, darling, we're all terribly busy with the Meridian Club charity gala this weekend. Trust me, I cut in. Everyone will want to be there. especially Peter. Tell him it's about additional investments. That got her attention. Peter's fund was always hungry for new money, needing fresh capital to maintain the illusion of profits. What they didn't know was that I'd spent the last month preparing for this moment. The meeting was set for Saturday afternoon at Uncle James' lakeside mansion. I arrived early, setting up my laptop and documents in his wood-paneled study. Lisa, my financial advisor friend, came as my expert witness. The forensic accountant waited on standby for a video call. Are you sure about this? Lisa asked, reviewing our presentation one last time. Once you start, there's no going back. I thought about the youth center kids whose scholarship fund Peter had stolen, about Aunt Susan's retirement savings, about all the lives his greed had touched. I'm sure. They arrived in waves. Peter and Victoria in matching tennis whites, Andrea glued to her phone. Uncle James and Aunt Susan looking country club perfect. Cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone who'd invested in Peter's exclusive fund. Catherine. Peter's smile was razor sharp. Victoria mentioned you're interested in increasing your investment. Wise choice. Our latest returns are exceptional. Actually, I interrupted, closing the study door. I called everyone here to discuss those returns. And a few other things. The next hour was like watching a bomb detonate in slow motion. I presented the evidence methodically, fake account statements, non-existent trades, the pyramid structure of payments. Lisa explained the technical details while I showed the money trail. This is ridiculous, Peter sputtered. These accusations are documented. I pulled up the forensic accountant's report, including the theft from the family foundation. Did you really think nobody would notice the scholarship fund being drained? Aunt Susan gasped. The children's scholarships. Peter, you promised those were safe. It's a temporary reallocation, he insisted. The market conditions. Stop lying. My voice cut through his excuses. I've already reported everything to the SEC. They're launching a formal investigation on Monday. The room erupted in chaos. Victoria burst into tears, clinging to Peter's arm. Andrea dropped her phone. Uncle James looked like he might have a heart attack. You can't do this, Peter hissed. You'll destroy everything. You destroyed everything, I corrected him. I'm trying to save what I can. I laid out the recovery plan I developed with Lisa and a team of lawyers. Those who'd received profits would need to return them as fraudulent transfers. But if everyone cooperated with the investigation, there was a chance to recover some of the principal investments. I've set up a legitimate victims fund, I explained. We'll pool resources for legal representation, work with the authorities. Authorities? Victoria shrieked. Do you have any idea what this will do to our reputation, our social standing? I thought of all the times they'd mocked my little town, my meaningless work helping others. Your reputation? I laughed softly. You're worried about country club gossip while people's life savings vanish, while scholarship kids lose their chance at college? Speaking of the foundation, Lisa interjected smoothly. We have documentation of every unauthorized transfer. The board will need to be notified. Wait. Uncle James stood up, his face ashen. There must be a way to handle this internally. Keep it in the family, like Peter kept his promises in the family. I shook my head. No, too many people have been hurt. The truth comes out on Monday. Peter switched tactics, his voice turning pleading. Catherine, please, we can work something out. I'll get you your money back with interest. Just don't what? Don't expose your crimes? Don't stop you from stealing from more people? I stood facing my cousin directly. You know what your biggest mistake was, Peter? Besides the fraud, the theft, the lies? He stared at me, waiting. You thought because I chose to live in a small town, because I work helping others instead of chasing wealth, that I was stupid, weak, someone you could easily deceive. I never. You forgot that Grandma Rose taught me the same values she taught you. The difference is I actually listened. The next few hours were a blur of tears, recriminations, and negotiations. Some family members agreed to cooperate immediately, desperate to salvage what they could. Others, like Victoria, alternated between threats and hysterical pleas. But by evening, the die was cast. The SEC would receive our evidence first thing Monday. The foundation board would be notified. Law enforcement would handle the criminal aspects. Peter and Victoria disappeared before dinner, already calling their lawyers. Andrea sat in shocked silence, her social media empire about to implode. Uncle James and Aunt Susan huddled with Lisa, discussing damage control. I slipped out to the lakeside deck, exhausted but at peace. My phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Henderson at the youth center, with a photo of kids in the new computer lab my donation had helped create. "You did the right thing," Lisa said, joining me outside. "It won't be easy, but you saved a lot of people from losing everything." "Not everyone." I sighed, thinking of the later investors who'd lose most of their money. "But you stopped it before it got worse, and the foundation funds can be recovered. The scholarship program saved." The fallout was exactly as expected. Peter and Victoria fled to the Cayman Islands, but Interpol caught up with them within weeks. The SEC investigation made headlines. Our family's social standing took a massive hit. But something unexpected happened too. As news of the fraud spread, people started reaching out. Other victims of similar schemes, kids who'd lost scholarships, families devastated by financial predators. 6 months later, I stood before a different kind of gathering. The youth center's main hall was packed with people attending the first meeting of the Financial Fraud Survivors Support Group. We'd expanded the education program to include financial literacy classes, fraud prevention workshops, and counseling services. Sometimes, I told the group, the worst things that happen to us lead to the best ways we can help others. Uncle James and Aunt Susan sat in the back row. They'd lost millions but gained perspective. They now volunteered teaching seniors how to spot investment scams. The family foundation, under new management, was thriving. We'd restored the scholarship program and added grants for fraud prevention education. Lisa called one evening as I was leaving work. "You know what's ironic? Your Little Town project has helped more people than Peter's fund ever did, even if he hadn't been stealing." I looked around at my not-so-small town, at the lives touched and changed, at the community grown stronger through adversity. "Money's funny that way," I replied. "Its real value isn't in how much you have, but in what you do with it." A year to the day after the family meeting, I received a letter from Peter, written from federal prison. He asked for forgiveness, for help, for money for his appeal. I wrote back one sentence: "The youth center always welcomes volunteers after rehabilitation." He never replied, but I heard through family that he'd started teaching financial literacy to fellow inmates. Maybe something good could come from him too. Standing in my garden that evening, I thought about Grandma Rose. She'd left me more than money. She'd left me her values, her strength, her sense of right and wrong. The inheritance that mattered most wasn't in her bank accounts, but in her lessons about integrity and community. The next morning, I had grant proposals to review, support group meetings to lead, and a new financial education initiative to launch. My life wasn't small. It was rich with purpose, with real connections, with meaningful work. And that, I realized, was the best revenge of all.